As you'll hear from today's guest, there are billions of dollars on the table for companies that tap the talents of their women and emerging leaders in a better way. Hello and welcome. My name is Roger Courville, and today we're going to talk about how smart marketers create career success. And welcome to another episode of Thought Leader Conversations, sponsored by the crew here at Virtual Venues, where you can instantly scale your virtual and hybrid event production team with a crew that'll help you focus on something other than tech and logistics. But we're not here to talk about us, and I'm excited to welcome somebody that I'm just getting to know right along with you. Debbie Peterson, CSP, keynote speaker and impact strategist, and author of the book that we're going to use at least as a jumping off point for today, Clarity: How Smart Professionals Create Career Success on Their Terms. Now, Debbie knows what you've been through. She spent 25 plus years in the corporate world, hit a wall, feel stuck, frustrated, miserable. Debbie's is a certified trainer in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I'm curious about that. Master Practitioner through the Association of Integrative Psychology, has presented to organizations as diverse as Ingram Micro, Society of Sensory Professionals, and Raymond James, and notably accomplished as a speaker, boasting the highest earned award from National Speakers Association, the CSP, Certified Speaking Professional. I know that's a lot of work. Debbie, welcome. Glad you're here. Tell us a little more about who you are and what you do.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad I'm here too. And thank you for having me. And a little bit about what I do is I really help people to tap into who they are so they can go all in on what they do and make a bigger impact. And the interesting thing about that is it happens with clarity. A lot of it is choices. I remember when my grandson was little, and he was a toddler, and my daughter-in-law would say, "Make good choices." And that's really what it comes down to. So, I help people create the vision of where they want to go next, aligned with who they are, and then give them the tools and the structure to get into action. So it's marrying those two components to help people really achieve their next level. And it's a lot of fun.
Well, I know you work with women and leaders in a broader set of roles than just marketing, but we'll just keep that in mind since that's our general market here. But I'm confident that your story will inspire and instruct those that listen. And I'm just curious, if you were consulting with a group of marketing executives, where do you even begin the dialogue on career success?
It is about connection, and that first element of connection, if you consider connection concentric rings, has to start with you. And what happens is, and what I find with my audience is that many people are in a place where they don't want to be. They are stuck, they are frustrated, but they don't know where they do want to be. They just know that this isn't it. And so it is helping them to shift that mindset to get to a different place. And essentially, that was me. So, in my, again, 25 plus years in corporate, and I was pretty much the woman behind the man. That was my comfort zone. That's where I felt safe and I really felt I could contribute until one day I start getting this whisper, and it says, "You're capable of more." And at first I disregarded it. I didn't know what it meant, but it was just one of those things that wouldn't leave me alone. The problem is it didn't say what capable of more meant, and it didn't tell me how to get there. And I think with a lot of high performing professionals, and especially creative professionals, that perfectionism can fall into place, always refining, always trying to up level and achieve more. Um, and that's essentially what I fell into. It was kind of like, okay, if I'm not living or working my potential, then something must be wrong with me.
Mm.
And so my answer was just to get better in every single area of my life. I mean, it was trying to be the perfect size and trying to be the perfect mom, with schools and grades and friends and all the things, just trying to have the perfect home and just all of those things. And then at work, it was just worse because I felt so disconnected. And that cycle really took its toll on me physically. And, that was kind of my wake up call that, okay, something's got to give. There's got to be something more than this.
You know, let's dive into that wake up call, because I know you've worked with a lot of people, right? And even, I'm thinking about my own story right in the middle of you talking about that. For me, it would begin, about 25 years ago when I had just got done training about 200 salespeople when I was at Microsoft, and somebody came up afterwards and said, "Wow, have you ever thought about being a motivational speaker?" And I'm like, "No." But it was that little wake up call. It was like, oh, maybe there is something more. And I'm just curious, when you work with someone, and I want to kind of marry this with, I would love you to define career success. How do you define career success? And in terms of where to go, but what's that wake up call? What's that little nudge that people experience?
Well, it wasn't a nudge. It was more like a cosmic 2x4, to be honest. It was the wake up call was, I was so disconnected from myself that all the things that brought me joy no longer did. I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I felt stuck. I felt frustrated. I was having heart palpitations. I was having numbness in my left hand, which really wigged me out. I wasn't sleeping through the night. I mean, Roger, I couldn't even get a full breath. I couldn't breathe in a full breath because my chest was just that constricted. And the funny thing is that, well, it wasn't funny at the time. It is kind of now, but I have heart disease on both sides of my family, and the control freak that I am, I'm like, oh, this is what it's got to be. And my next thought was, well, I don't have time for this. Do we do that to ourselves? Oh, I don't, I'm a strong person. I'm a strong woman. I just suck it up, buttercup, power through it, or whatever it is that we tell ourselves. And for me, that wasn't necessarily the best advice, because when I went in to get the results of all the tests, they run, it wasn't my heart, thank goodness. It was stress. And it was affecting my body physically. And it was just eating away at who I was, to the point where I didn't recognize myself anymore. And that scared the daylights out of me. I thought, this can't be all it's ever going to be, you know? And so by the age of 40, I'm on migraine medicine. I'm on high blood pressure medicine, anti-anxiety medicine. I joke I was mad, miserable, and medicated. But that is where I needed to be in order to feel it and then know there was something more. And, in the hero's journey that we all talk about, NLP was the hero for me, because one of my favorite sayings is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's what happened. I got sent to a corporate training, and it was NLP. And I remember going in with a real arms crossed sort of attitude, like, okay, what am I going to learn here? And in a matter of hours, my perspective had changed. And unbeknownst to me, my life had started to change too. Because NLP, my definition, neuro is the mind, linguistic is language, and programming is habits, our habits and the strategies that we run automatically without even understanding that we're doing that. And so NLP is about the language of the mind that governs your outcomes. You make different choices, you can have different outcomes.
Right.
And that was freeing for me. And everything started to change from that realization. And eventually it was, all the symptoms went away, all the medicines went away. And then the new whisper dropped in. You're meant to pay this forward. And it's like, okay, how do I do that? So, that started the journey of, when my husband retired, I thought, okay, I'm going to hop out of corporate and figure it out. And when you are open to experiences, things will come and show you a way. There'll be, threads to pull or breadcrumbs to follow, whatever metaphor you want to use. And that's what happened with me. So accidentally, I got on stage one day. It was just a fluke. It wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to be. I wanted to throw up or pass out at the thought of doing it. I'm an introvert, And when I got off that stage, it was a different world. And I thought, okay, I need to pursue this. And that was kind of the start of it all. But, I don't get the whisper. I get the 2x4, and then I'm ready to make a change. So I know there are people out there who hear that and are like, oh yeah, unfortunately, that's me. It's really easier if you get the lesson early on.
Back on the NLP thing, just out of curiosity, was that with Michael Grinder?
No, it was with Dr. Matthew B. James, the Empowerment Partnership, and I've done all of my trainings. So I did. I was like a little guppy, with fish food. After I started my first training, I did practitioner, master practitioner, trainers training, went back and did them all online, went back and assisted. It was just so empowering for me and important for me to give back as well.
So back to, how do you define career success? Whether you've now stepped onto stage, or you're just talking to somebody in the airplane seat next to you and they say, "Oh, I'm the VP of marketing at blah blah blah." How do you put the flag out there in terms of giving them a vision for what success really looks like?
The thing is, so the framework that I've created, because once I got to the other side and my life had changed and medicines were gone and my life was definitively different, I thought, okay, if I'm going to pay this forward, then I've got to have some way to take what I've experienced and be able to replicate it. So what I've discovered is my mind works in systems and frameworks. So I created a framework to help people get clarity on what career success means to them, because it doesn't matter what I say career success is. Even, the two of us, we do speaking. You know this as well as I do. There are a zillion ways to build a speaking business. There are just a zillion models. Well, it's the same thing with career success. It can only be defined by the individual. And how they do that is they get clarity. And what they really, what I encourage them to start with is an overall goal of what is it that you're trying to do? Is it that you're working to define more of your leadership presence? Are you looking to get your department, your team to the next level? Are you looking for career satisfaction? And because that's where you start. What is the overarching goal? And once you know what that overarching goal is, then you can move forward from there. So the system, the framework that I have created works no matter what you point it at. But you have to be clear on kind of the direction you want to go. Even if you're in a place of, oh my gosh, I am so freaking miserable. I don't know if I can do this another day. All right, that's a starting place. And we can go from there by asking questions and making choices that will put you on that path to clarity. And that's what, the company is getting to clarity, because it's a process. It is not a one and done. It evolves. And, just you get a promotion, and then at some point you're a little more comfortable in your role and you're looking to up level and get clarity on what that next level would be. So life is always changing, and so are we. So it's staying in touch with who we are, what is most important to us, and the direction that we want to go.
What mindset shift accompanies that? Have you seen something in particular, like a pattern of what's going on in somebody's life? Or maybe it was what we already talked about, but what is the mindset shift that goes with, all right, I'm miserable. Maybe I don't know where I want to go. I just know I don't want to be here. But now,
Yeah.
because some people want change, but they're not ready to change themselves.
Because change can be messy and uncomfortable. And actually, the mess and the discomfort is a gift. So that is part of the mindset. And so, the principles and the presuppositions of NLP have really guided me. And it it in that particular, my very first training, it was like a switch flipped for me. And at a simplistic level, what I will say, I went from a fixed to a growth mindset in my life overall. And that's not something that's a one and done. You kind of go in and out of that depending on where you are. If you step into a new leadership role, then you may have a little more of a fixed mindset, as opposed to if you've been in a role for a long time, you're a little more comfortable. New client, right? Take on a new big client, and it's kind of like, okay, this is the biggest client I've ever had, and that self-doubt crops in a little bit, and you're more fixed. But then the more comfortable you get, it kind of eases over into that growth. And for me, I was in a mindset when I hit the wall of, this is all there is. This is all my life is ever going to be. And I was almost incredulous. I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is not what I signed up for. But NLP, when I went through that, it showed me how to open my thinking, because when we're in a place where we feel stuck, we're very narrowly focused on the problems, and we kind of just tend to, operate in this small area of our problems and frustration. But when we shift our mindset and things open up, then you can see possibility, you can see choice. And that is just something that is so liberating. But the lessons that come with it, again, can be uncomfortable, but it's designed to happen for you, not to you.
Yeah, I find that often we don't grow because we avoid suffering. We grow through suffering in one way, shape, or form. Just out of curiosity, does your work touch down with personal branding or the way one presents themselves in the context of that, of figuring out and pursuing that
So
process?
it could. It is not in my wheelhouse, but I can help someone get clarity on what that is, because you take the framework and you point it at that. And then the questions in the framework will guide you towards your answers, because that's the whole thing, that people think when they want to change, when they want to up level, when they're having a hard time getting to that next level, it's like, okay, what more do I need to do? Who do I need to become to do this? And it's that thinking that I need to be more. And actually, it's not about adding to who you are. It's about discovering what is covering you up.
Say that again.
So,
Not about
yes,
more.
anytime big change, it is not about adding to who you are. It is about discovering what is covering you up, because your answers are inside. But what is keeping you from accessing them? What is influencing you in a way that isn't really aligned with who you are? And I mean, think about it. And marketing professionals, right? That's the whole world is influence. But when you consider, social media and TV and movies and magazines, all right, but then you get into coworkers or bosses or family. My mom, she never would have told me to go do this. She's proud as peaches with what I do now, but she would have been too scared for me if I would have said, "You know what, Mom, I'm going to leave my corporate job and I'm going to go become a professional speaker." She just would have wigged out. So sometimes our family doesn't support us the way that we need it, but they're doing it the best way they know how. It's just not what we need. So, in the framework, part of it is people. Who are the people that can help you? Who are the people that can help guide you? You can learn from. Who are the people that doing what you want to do? Maybe they're just a little further down the path, or they've already achieved it. So think of NSA and the CSP masterminds. I mean, those are all prime examples of how people can help you get where you want to go. But here's something that I discovered when I was going through my own, is that when you feel that you're messed up and your life is just a insert show, um, you tend to hold it to yourself. Nobody can know. Nobody can know I don't know what's going on, or I don't have it all figured out, or that my life is this messed up. But
Right.
actually,
Going through divorce.
that is double stress.
Right.
One, you got the stress of going through it, but then two, you've got the stress of hiding it from everyone else. And I was the queen of that. So people can show up and support you if you will let them, in many different capacities, personally, professionally. But again, it's your choice as to who you let in, because not everyone who is with you is for you. So
Tell me a little more about your work and the various ways that touches down. So you obviously stand on stages. Do you also lead mastermind groups or do consulting, that kind of thing, with other modalities through which you connect with and help?
yeah. So, I mean, primarily the primary pillar of my business is keynote speaking. And so I travel the country, hopefully one day internationally. I would love to do that. Little shameless plug there. And what I've learned, getting clarity is a process, right? What I've learned since starting my business is where I can have an impact. And for me, the biggest impact that I can have is with women in leadership and emerging leaders. And the reason why is because oftentimes they have the question marks about, okay, here's where I'm at, but how do I get to where I want to go? It could be because they're early in their career, or it just could be that they're juggling a lot. We are busy and we take on a lot. We've got a lot going on. And so um, they tend to be the groups that I can help the most. But, you know, for anyone looking to achieve a next level or get clarity on what that next is, the framework applies. So, I started in financial services. I've done a lot in credit unions and banks and things like that. But now am expanding into other industries because it's a fit. So, I'm nursing and automotive and staffing and, wealth management. So it's real estate. It's been a lot of fun to kind of take this on the road to other industries and just see what they get out of it, because they will tell me after a keynote, oh my goodness, this is what I'm going to do. And it was like, it had been on their mind. They hadn't let it through. And then after we broke everything down so they could get into action, they're like, oh, I'm going to do it. At one of my last keynotes, it wasn't anything professionally she wanted to do, but she wanted to write a children's book.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she sees the way forward. She got clarity on her way forward, because it's not what I say, but it's the guidance that I give. It's the questions that I ask, that everybody in the audience gets their own personal clarity about their way forward. And that's the fun part.
You talk about getting clarity being a process. Does your
Mhm.
book speak to, is the point to get to that point of clarity so you now are clear on that objective or where you want to go? Or are there some additional steps that go beyond that to tell them how to put that into action?
So the book is like a do-it-yourself,
Got
and it has the framework to be able to go through. And when you answer these questions, you will have direction. You may not know, okay, it's this job with this title in this city, or that it's making a move and serving this agency and this city and this capacity, but it'll give you direction and it'll lead you to your breadcrumbs that they'll start showing up. And then you're like, okay, I say yes to this, because that's what clarity does. It allows you to really step up all in on who you are and make that bigger impact, because that direction that you want to go, because you've got that clarity. You know what you should say yes to when it shows up, because it's a fit. You've done the work. You know what to say no to. Because just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And there are some things that we should say no to, but we don't, because we think this is what you're supposed to do, right? So clarity is personal, and it's up to you to get clarity on the direction through the framework and then see what shows up. But it's the guidance. Like one of the things that I had said is aligned with who you are. So consider the workday, consider the boundaries around clients, consider maybe the company or the agency that you work for. And if what is most important to you isn't aligned with what's most important to them, then it's going to be sucking the life out of you. You know, um, for me, one of my things that's tremendously important in my business is flexibility. And so next Wednesday, I am taking the day, and I already FaceTime my grandson and said, hey, Dee Dee found a new park and we're going to go. And so, because I want to be able to, he's 4 and I want to be there with him. I want to have that time with him. And I want to have my time, on stage and helping people make a bigger impact. And I can have both. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be and.
I'm taking off next Wednesday too. My wife and I are going to go hiking up Mount Rainier, so
Oh, nice.
doing the same thing. So, if somebody calls you and they're
Mhm.
attempting to discern whether or not you're the right speaker for them, what questions are you hoping that they ask you?
What questions am I hoping that they ask me? Um, well, besides fee range, right?
Right?
That's
You
a
available on
lot of times that's where they start. I hope that's not the first question. Uh, but it is to understand the framework. And really, for me, when a client calls, it's about me asking the questions to really understand where they are, where their audience is, what they're trying to achieve, because they know their industry much better than I do. I'll know something about it. I'll do research going in. But as they talk, as we have this conversation, my brain is popcorning with okay, this is a fit. This is a fit. This is how I can support them. So it's really having that conversation and they start the conversation. Um, so that I can say, yeah, and this is how we can do it. And I can lay it out that it fits their audience. And then after the conversation, it is about really understanding the industry more. So, for instance, one of the recent keynotes that I had a chance to do was for a nursing group, and it was the Wounds, Ostomy, and Continence Nurses Society of America. Okay. I'm a lightweight when it comes to blood and all of those things. So I thought, okay, I'm not a nurse. I never played one on TV. I need to understand the industry a little bit more. So after we had the conversation and understood what they wanted for the nurses that were in the audience, then I go and I interview. So, I've got a set of questions that I will ask to really get my hands around the industry, and then I use it on stage.
I do.
So it is incorporated into, I'm talking their language is to the best of my ability, and bringing them on stage so that they can share and help all of their colleagues in the room with that next level. So it's just so much fun to do.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I ask if they will can connect me with 3 to 5 people that will be
Mhm.
okay. So I'm going to be at the Montana Society of CPAs. What what next? But then I'll do that. I'll ask them, hey, imagine you're in the room with all your peers. What do they need to hear? What are they going through? So I don't even say, what are you going through? I say, what are they going through? And I love that for callbacks too. I ask permission, of course. But hey, I was talking with Jake the other day, and you all know Jake.
Right. And it helps you to build rapport with the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's genuine. We're there to serve, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know about you. So obviously, in a way, just met you, but I mean, we got a heart to serve. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, the days of show up, throw up, and go home is that's old school, right? I mean, I want to get there and be there in advance and walk around the room and hang out afterwards and hear people's stories and importantly figure out what it was that I said that landed or didn't
Mhm.
land.
Mhm.
And, I mean, I'm training and consulting as opposed to keynoting, but in a
The
similar
same
way.
thing. Yeah. I mean, it's imparting information. You're looking to support your audience, and same thing goes. I heard Sage from the stage. And, kind of when I came into NSA a number of years ago, like that was already on the way out. And it took the pressure off that you can just show up and have a conversation and be there and ask questions and support them. Stay at play is one of the things I do. I love to come in early. I'll go to the reception the night before. I'm at the door welcoming people in as they come into the conference room or the ballroom. And I know everybody's got their style, but that's just my style. And I am calling, meeting professionals, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be there. How can I help? Do you want me to facilitate a panel? Do you want me to do some interviews? It's like, as long as I want to be a partner with them and do as much as I can to support them. And that for me is just fun.
So just out of curiosity, I'm guessing you've got something up your sleeve, like a success story or two where someone took what you brought to the table in a speech, they bought your book, something like that, and they took it and ran with it. Do you have any stories? You have a success story or two to share?
A lot of times I don't hear after the fact, but there have been a couple that one gal in one of my presentations, it's about the roadmap to your next level. She has the roadmap hanging in her office because, that is just how she benchmarks. And, it's usually immediate. People will come up to me right after the keynote and say, oh my goodness, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my master's degree. I've heard that a number of times. I am going to get clarity on my way forward. So one of the pieces of the system is, what do you want? And let's make it fun. Let's just brainstorm about it. If it was the Walgreens world, right? If the universe was perfect and you could have anything you wanted, what would be some of the things that you would want? What are you curious about? What lights you up? What might you want to do? Instead of having to zero in on just one thing, it's like, let's brainstorm and then let's debrief in the room. Because some people, when it comes to whatever's next, they know they've been thinking about it. Their pen is flying fast and furious. And other people are like, oh crap, I've never thought about it. So, it's the rising tide and the, lifts all boats in the room. And people will tell me that I got a way forward to figure out my next. I'm going to find a mentor. I hear it all in the, I use Talkadot, the testimonials. From there, I get people that come up to me and it's just that immediate clarity that they have an action step. And that's part of the system as well. What are you going to do now? And within 48 hours, share and declare, pinky swear, what are you going to do instead of going back to real life?
Right.
And so
I can just imagine, I mean, how liberating that has to be for that room full of people. I mean, I can tell you, I spent a lot of years in the tech / software industry. And there were some years where it was like, okay, here's a reorg. The boss puts you over here because of your expertise or whatever. And I'm making really good money and I'm having an impact and I'm miserable because I'm making more money than I've ever made. And I don't care about making more money than I've ever made. I'm miserable. And I hate showing up to work and I'm like, something's wrong here.
And I've been there. I mean, I had the same thing, job with pay and benefits beyond anything I ever could have imagined. And it made me physically sick. It just really took its toll on me. It was a toxic environment and it was just, I had to get out. But at first I'm telling myself, oh my God, people would be just envious of the job that I have because I got to travel and sometimes travel private and the whole thing. But at some point it was just like, it's not worth it.
I was walking through the Melbourne, Australia airport once and I heard my name. Somebody said, hey, Roger. I'm like, I'm a long ways from home. And they're like, oh, I'm like, do I know you? And they're like, no, just noticed you go by and I've read your books and I follow your work. Thank you. And I'm like, that was worth more money than anything. Yeah. I mean, well, Debbie, I really appreciate you spending a little time just sharing your heart. What, if we think about one final question or two, how can people, what's a good next step for someone? Is it the clarity piece? I mean, it's get the framework.
It would be the overall direction. If where you're at isn't where you want to be, what do you want instead? So just that shifting that focus from where you're at to where you want to be, it opens a door. It opens your thinking. It becomes more about possibility, options, choices. So, that's really what you have to have first. And then it is going through the framework to make decisions about what's most important to you personally and professionally and how you're going to get there. Because, the days of leaving your home at home and not bringing it to work and vice versa, that's been blown out of the water. I mean, that's just not this past influence, the influence before. Sint Marshall, she was there. I believe she's still CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. But she came in, Mark Cuban hired her to do a turnaround, and she has a book. I'm trying to see if I've got her book here. I think it's You've Been Chosen is her book, but she talks about radical authenticity and that's what needs to come to work. And so one of the programs, I also have is about leading yourself first and really getting clarity on what is most important to you personally and professionally, because you have to take into consideration both. If you're not, then you are sacrificing what's most important to you to build something else. And it can't happen to be sustainable.
I'm still an NSA member and, maintain my CSP, but I haven't been influenced for a few years while I've been working on my doctorate. So,
oh yeah,
we'll get back there.
So that's a choice. And that's a prime example of, okay, while I'm doing this, I know that this is my focus. So there are some other things they're going to have to go on the back burner. And that's the metaphor that I use. I hate the term work-life balance because balance is a bad word. It's about choices, but it's about making educated choices, educated decisions about what you're going to do and why.
When it comes to career and success, where does your Master Practitioner through the Association of Integrative Psychology touch down?
So that is, it's NLP. And even though I don't teach NLP, it is the foundation of everything that I do. That and HUNA. So HUNA, not hula, one letter, big difference, is a form of Hawaiian spiritualism that is something else that guides how I live my life and guides how I serve my clients.
Final question for you. Are there any questions I should have asked you that I haven't?
Oh, not that I can think of. I so enjoy doing these, and especially when it's an open sort of forum, because it's fun to see where the conversation goes, because it goes where it needs to. And there's going to be somebody out there who's going to pick up on something that they needed to hear. And then it's like, that makes my little toes tap.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off there. I said, sometimes it's really hard to predict exactly what that will be, right? Like that time you just got done speaking to a room full of people and somebody comes up and says, "Whoa, that one thing you said." And like, that was a throwaway line. That wasn't even one of the main points, but those are valuable.
Exactly. Yeah. But they hear you, that's why, where you're at in any given moment, when something comes through and it resonates with you, pay attention to it, because you're picking up on it for a reason. And, I could deliver the same exact keynote, gesture for gesture, word for word. I don't run that way, but if I did, and you can be in the audience on consecutive days and you will hear things that you swore that you never heard before. You will hear things I didn't say. I get that sometimes too. Oh, I love the part where you said, and it's like, oh, great. I'm glad you got that. And I'm thinking to myself, but I didn't say that. But something I said got them to that point, and that's what they needed. So that's why clarity is an inside job, because it is inside of us. That's how we tap into what is most important, what we need to hear, who we find, who shows up.
Debbie, again, thank you so much. Besides Debbie Peterson Speaks, and just in case you're just listening and not watching, Debbie Peterson with an O-N on the end, DebbiePetersonSpeaks.com. Any other way that you prefer to be connected with people?
Well, I am on most of the social media. So LinkedIn is a big forum. I enjoy putting content out to help support the people who are following along. So every week, there's a live and an article and the newsletter on LinkedIn, and also YouTube, creating reels and other content. The podcast, people like to pick it up and consume it in different ways. And so I try to accommodate. But if there are things that, topics that people want to dive into, if there's something they're struggling with, then, Debbie at DebbiePetersonSpeaks.com. Let's have a conversation. Call me up. I'll help give you as much clarity as I can.
What's the name of your podcast?
The Getting to Clarity podcast.
The Getting to Clarity podcast. Awesome. Well, when this goes live, we'll put it on YouTube, but we then embed it into a blog post, and we'll link to all of various things in the blog post. So if you're listening to this and happen to be at the V2 website, you'll find all of the links around the video so that you can connect with Debbie in whatever way that you prefer to. And with that, I want to thank Debbie again for spending a little time with us. And we want to just thank our sponsor today, Virtual Venues, where you can scale your virtual and hybrid event production team for making these things possible. We'll see you on the next episode of Thought Leader Conversations.